Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the difference between two coolers on my workbench desktop. So the one that I use for doing my imaging for customers, etc. Just to see if there's any real difference. So the current cooler installed is this Arctic Alpine 17 97mm PWM fan. And again, what we'll do is we'll take some tests, find out what temperatures it's working at by running Cinebench on it, do a couple of passes of Cinebench, and then we'll get an idea of the core temperature, the top temperature, etc. The current CPU that I've got on my system is not that one, of course, it's that one. So it's an i5 3475S, so it's an 1155 or an LGA 1155 processor. Not particularly powerful, doesn't need to be. As I said, it's primarily for imaging, transfer customer data, that sort of thing. Just a bog standard workhorse sat there. It's not even my main PC. It's purely for work. Once we've done some Cinebenching on that, what we're going to do then is we're going to take a look at a ID Cooling SE224XT, which is that one there. Okay, again, I've purchased that off of Amazon. Current price of that one was $26.99 because it was the white one. It's got a white LED fan on it, apparently. White housing. The black one was $29.99, I think it was, but you know, I'm not particularly worried about colour, and as is going in my Corsair T220 case, which is also white. I thought, well, white would be better. So, and again, it supports up to an LGA 1700 type. So it'd be interesting to see if there's any real difference between the cooling on the Arctic versus the cooling on the ID cooling. We'll also do an unbox so you can see what comes in the packaging. Okay, so if we look at the current temperatures, this is on idle. Currently it's just benchmark running in the background with nothing, no programs actually running. On hardware info, then you will notice that we've got a core temperature of 37 degrees, 36, 37 degrees, going down now 34. The minimum that it's been is 23, obviously from startup, and the maximum has been 44. The ambient temperature in this room is 28.5, just to let you know. And the average is coming up with 36 degrees. Now, obviously, that's before any benchmarks are run. Okay, so that's just purely idling with one program, if you like, open. It's not running as such, but it's open. So let's see where we go from here. Right, so the next step is we're going to run Cinebench R23. I'm going to run it on the CPU on the multi-core side of things. And we're going to do it for a maximum test duration of 10 minutes, which is what we've set in the settings. So we're just going to start that one off now. Okay, so the 10-minute pass is now completed. As you can see, the core temperature is 54 degrees. Minimum has remained at 23, and the maximum that it reached was 57 degrees, with the average 42 degrees. So that was initially the benchmark Cinebench R23 run on the Arctic Alpine cooling CPU cooler, air cooler. As I said, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the ID Cooling SE224XT tower cooler with 120mm fan. I don't know if it's relevant or not, just as a footnote, the Cinebench scores come in see here at 2423 points. Be interested to see if that changes with the cooling, if the cooling makes it any better, but the Cinebench scores any better. Don't know how that works, to be honest. I've not used Cinebench myself, more of a repair person rather than a review, but we'll see what that does. Okay, so this is the ID Cooling SE224XT, and we'll just take a look at what's inside the box. So you've got your installation guide. Package boxes. A white fan. A tower cooler itself. So that's the 120mm fan. LED white light to match obviously the white colour of the top of the cooler. It's actually quite an attractive looking cooler, especially with the white finish of the fan as well. Yeah, quite like that. I'm assuming that there is no heatsink compound, so no thermal paste, so that's all ready for you to put on. And then in the box, let's put some light on the subject a minute. There we go. So in the box here, so they actually supply you with ID's own ID Cooling Frost X25 thermal paste. Mounting bracket. Some spring fittings for the fan. That's your spacers and your thumb screws to sit down on top of the points of the cooler itself. Some more screws. And then in here, obviously we've got brackets dependent on what system you're using. Okay. Oh, something else in the box, isn't there? Some more. So there's the LGA 1700 specific spacers. So I assume these are for the 1155, 1151, 1150, etc. styling. Okay, I'm going to put it together, get it in the machine, and then we'll see what it comes up with. So this is my Corsair 220T workstation case. You can see with a very minute micro ATX keyboard in it. Currently running with the Arctic Alpine 12LP cooler. And we got 8 gig of Patriot RAM, couple of fans, as you say. So you know the temperatures you're getting in there. Obviously, there's going to be slight assistance from the number of fans, 3 at the front, 2 at the top, and 1 at the rear. I will tell you they are all pushing air in, so we've got a positive airflow because there's plenty of space here that pushes the air back out, so you don't need an exhaust fan as such. So that's what we're going to replace. So this is going to be replaced by the the tower, the ID Cooling tower cooler. Right, excuse the glare back from the white, but that's the ID cooling fan now in situ. The only things I would advise, if you've got a CPU fan header in the back of the board, which is unusual these days, it's usually top right corner. I put the fan connected to the header and then placed it down here out of the way whilst I fitted the Terra cooler, just to make life a little bit easier. But you can see it's cleared the RAM, no problem at all, and pretty straightforward installation. The ID cooling thermal paste is what I've used, so the one that came in a box, so it'd be a true representation of what comes in the box as if you were buying it from fresh. So there it is, as I say, all in situ, replacing what was the original fan, which was an Arctic Alpine 12 LP. And we'll see what the test results are in a moment when we come to do the run on Cinebench R23. Okay, again, for those that are interested, I've turned on the thing, I've changed the fan RGB on the front just to be pretty much white. And then you can see that the LED on the new cooler, let's turn the lights off. There you go, see it a bit better there. So you got your, your white LED kind of matching nicely with the rest of the system now. Okay, so silly me, didn't write down the other figures, but I'm sure you'll be able to rewind the video and check it for yourselves. But the core temperature currently is at 30, well, it's fluctuating between 29 and 33 degrees, to be perfectly honest. Minimum was at 20 degrees. The maximum so far is 37 with an average of 32. Ambient temperature in the room is 29 degrees, so slightly up, but nothing to write about. So again, we are going to run our Cinebench R23. And again, I'm going to set the tool duration for 10 minutes. Slightly minimized, same as I did for the other one. And we're going to set it on the multi-core, which we are starting now. And again, we can keep an eye on those core temperatures whilst we're running it, and I'll fast forward through this particular bit until we get to the end. Okay, so we're at the 0 point of the Cinebench run, and you can see that the current temperature is 43 degrees on the SE224. The minimum was 20 degrees, the maximum was 49 degrees, and the averaging out was 37 degrees. And obviously what we'll do is I'll compare that to the original results, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot cooler, but we'll look at that in a little clip at the end of all of this. I'm just going to let it run a minute just so as it finishes off. So the Cinebench score has gone up a little bit, because the original one was 2423, and then this one's gone up to 2457, so it has gone up a little bit. So you know, the cooling, or the better cooling, which is what I'm assuming, has increased the Cinebench scores a little tiny weeny bit. Okay, so let's just do an end of video comparison. Okay, so just to clarify the final findings, there's the computer me workhorse I was referring to, and you can see that the ID cooling tower is still in there, the SE224XT here. So just to clarify, there was a difference of 0.5 degrees ambient between the two tests. So it was 28.5 when the Arctic was run, and then 29 degrees in this workshop when we ran the SE224XT. The current temperatures, there was a difference of 11 degrees, so it's 54 for the Arctic, 43 for the SE224 at the time of completing. The minimum on the Arctic was 23 degrees, whereas it was 20 degrees on the ID cooling 224 again, so there's a 3 degree better response from the ID cooling. The maximum temperature of the Arctic was 57 degrees, where it was 49 degrees on the ID cooling, so that's a 8 degree reduction again in the ID cooling. And then the average on the Arctic was 42, where it was 37 on the ID cooling, again a 5 degree reduction on the ID cooling. So you know, it's not a scientific test, if you like, but you know, I think it proves that on my particular rig, running that processor, running exactly the same test, we are definitely getting a better response from the ID cooling 224. It's also quieter because it's running a larger fan, because obviously the Arctic has got the, I think these are 92mm fans as opposed to the 120 that's on the ID cooling. Hope this was useful. You might find it interesting. I'm certainly going to be using that as a third-party cooler in the future with some of the things that I'm building. Again, you know, it's not designed for high-end processors, but you know, certainly up to the mid-range i5s or indeed the Ryzen 5s, I don't see any reason why you couldn't use it. This particular one, I will say, is not compatible with the Ryzen. This is purely for the LGA 2066, 2011, 1700, 1200 and 1150, 152s, 55s, 50s, 56s, etc, etc. So it's not an AMD one. I don't know whether they do an AMD one, if I'm perfectly frank, but you know, I'm referring to the fact that a mid-range CPU would be perfectly fine run on that, or this run on a mid-range CPU. If you find that interesting, please like and subscribe. Please make any comments you like. I'll try and respond to them. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. See you all now. Cheers.